many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Okay, it seems we were having some technical difficulties there, but it looks like I am connected. Or at least connected to UCY's Skype. So I should be broadcasting. And I will know if I hear it in my other ear. Because anymore I usually have the network streaming in one ear. Okay, there we are. I hear it now. Well, since we had some technical difficulties, I'm not going to do too much rambling here. There's a clip I wanted to play, and this one's from Stefan Molyneux. This one is, he talks about, frustration, He speaks to a listener about his frustrations, and a lot of it I see play off in alternative media, and it's when someone starts getting notoriety. You see a lot of people start going, okay, now he's mainstream, basically. Instead of really supporting a message, moment someone becomes popular at all, it seems that people start, jumping ship and stop supporting those people. And, I want to go ahead and play this, and we shouldn't have any issues. So, let's go ahead and play this. Stefan Molyneux, Don't Kill Your Conscience.
And Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. Hope you're doing well. I'm here with Kirk. And now, Kirk, why do you hate the Free Domain Radio listeners so much? I mean, I love them with all my giant T-Rex beating heart. Why pour the hatred on the listeners so much? Even more than me at times. What prompted that for you?
Well, it was actually listening, I think it was a few weeks ago now, but I had listened to you, and it was, I think what kind of started it was after you guys had sent out the State of Free Domain Radio, or with the thing Michael had done, basically. To me, it was sort of like a prospectus, is kind of how I saw it, as for, me being a donator and then seeing what has happened and what you guys have accomplished over the past few years and how much the stuff's grown, and I was really excited about that. And then to hear you say that there was a rash of subscriptions that canceled in one of the podcasts, that just kind of bothered me, because I don't know, I guess partly as part of donating, I kind of see it as a part of the division of labor, and as me donating and you being a very, very good at what you do is changing the world in that sense. But to think of people when they find out something's doing well, and what to me is doing what I'm donating for, to cancel just is a little frustrating.
Yeah, it sort of feels like we're carrying this giant mattress up 90 flights. And suddenly it was like, hey, now we're doing, 2 flights an hour rather than 1. And then people are like, great, well, I guess I don't need to help with this. I'm going to go have a smoke. And they wander off. And it was a little surprising. We thought that it was like saying to people, here's what you've donated for, and here's how we've grown. Isn't that great? And people, I think, were basically like, oh, well, I guess it doesn't need my help anymore. I mean, why give the guy a kidney if he's got 2 functioning kidneys, so to speak? Which I think is sort of missing the point of how little we've penetrated. We've grown like crazy, but relative to the world that we need to talk to as a whole, it's minuscule.
Yeah, and I think for me, and then it was, listening a little bit after that too, and it was bringing up, you had talked to, is about, the people suggesting advertising. And to me, that's where that frustrates me as well, because I just, to me that's, I don't know, maybe they just see it differently than I do, but to me it's like they're not quite getting it. First of all, to me it's a little bit, I guess, what I'd call passive aggressive. If someone comes up with an idea that's obvious, and that, that I've heard you reiterate not wanting to do it many times on the podcast, but for people to still bring it up, and to me it's just that I think obviously when you ask for donations that someone's feeling a little bit of guilt or something like that, they're questioning, they're getting an uncomfortable feeling when you're asking, and then they're obviously suggesting ads, so that eliminates if he just does ads, then I wouldn't have to do anything.
Yeah, then I can watch, and I've got my ad block running, and then my guilt is relieved. And it is, it's tough, because people listen to this show, and I mean, they probably do it with other shows too, but people listen to this show, and it sort of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Dr. Phil. So every now and then I watch a Dr. Phil. And he gets people to come on the show whose lives are a complete disaster and who have zero insight into how their history may have shaped who they are, how their impulses may have arisen out of childhood trauma, or no insight whatsoever. And they say, I never miss a show. I've watched your show religiously. I've been watching it. I think he's been on the air like 10 or 11 years or something like that. I've watched every show. I TiVo them. I watch them slowly. I kiss the screen. I get static reflections in the deep corneas of my eyeballs and stuff. And I guess a lot of people think that just viewing or consuming something is a way of learning it. And that's really not. Like, I can watch a whole lot of tennis. That does not make me a tennis player. And I think people, when I say you need to act on your values, in whatever form that is, and donating is a pretty easy way to do it. It's a lot easier than most of the other alternatives, like confronting your friends and family about statism and child abuse and spanking and, the military. $10 a month or whatever is pretty easy. But when I'm telling people, look, you need to stop listening, you need to start doing, this is not a show for consumption, any more than you just read a diet book and say, well, that was interesting, and, faceplant into 3 cheesecakes. You need to actually change your behavior based upon these values. I think because the show is quite entertaining, I think people they're kind of reminded that this is not just a fun show. This is not just a show where you get to watch people wrestle with their challenges or whatever, but it's a show for you to change your behavior. I think it takes that, what they used to call the fourth wall in theater school. Like, the fourth wall is you've got this room in a theater, and then the audience, there's a wall missing and the audience can see what's going in. And sometimes you used to freak audience members out by crossing out from the fourth wall, going and talking to the audience, involving them in the play and so on. And actually, a friend of mine was in a play where the audience sat on the stage, and the entire play took place in where the audience normally seats. And it screws with people's perceptions. It makes them, sometimes can make them quite upset. And so when I kind of reach through the screen, right, and say, no, this is not for you to sit back and watch. This is, you can watch it you can listen to the show while playing World of Warcraft, that's fine. But at some point, the point of philosophy is to change your behavior. And donating is a pretty easy way to do that, to sort of put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. And I think that really bothers people, and the amount of backlash that seems to pop out whenever I remind people that they need to do something action-oriented with integrity. It seems kind of shocking. Like, a whole bunch of people come into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, then at some point someone says, you really should stop drinking, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm here for the stale coffee, the donuts, and the sweaty hugs from Meatloaf. So they just, and they really freak out. And then, as I mentioned before, I think what happens, Kirk, is they go into a parental alter ego. Like, I'm coming up and saying, listen, I would like some reciprocal resources, and this is like a kid asking nasty parents for something. And I think that if they've had those kinds of bad childhoods, which is a real shame, I think that they switch into that parental alter ego and pour scorn out of a guilty conscience on the person who's asking for reciprocity. It is pretty tragic, but it certainly seems to happen every time. But that's just the price of asking for stuff. This is why a lot of people manipulate and do all this passive-aggressive stuff, because openly asking people for stuff is, provokes a lot of tension in people and can provoke a lot of hostility.
Yeah, and I think, too, is just, those conversations as well with, as far as you, I think it must put you into a tough situation, because, trying to ask and legitimately push free domain radio forward, you have to ask the stuff, but yet that puts you in then when people are fighting back, and then if you say something back, whether it's the dollar donation thing or something like that, it puts you in a tough spot to, you still need to represent this stuff and actually ask for the stuff, because, you're not going to get things, if you don't ask for it. You have to, be the forefront out there. But then I think that's where it's confusing. I think most people maybe get it confused or something like that. It's like, that it's just for you. It's not like something, more than that is, if you run a business or anything like that, hiring Michael or doing all this stuff, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I could I would feel like in your position too, is like, it's not like you're just asking it just for you, but that's kind of the position they put you in, I guess it seems like. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's for the show, right? I mean, I need food and shelter, but I mean, as Mike can probably testify, a lot of money. I mean, people donate for, this studio, they donate for the technical equipment, they donate for the travel expenses I sometimes have for speeches, they donate for lighting, for cameras, for audio, for bandwidth, for computers, for research time, for the research time that we pay, for books that I have to buy. I mean, it's, it's not cheap to run the biggest philosophy show around. But people are kind of freaked out by just plain asking. And the other thing too is people then, because I'll pour scorn on someone who sends me $1. I think that's kind of insulting. And I think it's pretty tragic because someone can send me $1 and say, man, I'm really broke. This is all I've got. At which point I'll send the $1 back and say, listen, if this $1 is meaningful to you, please God, don't send it to me. Like, oh God, what a terrible thing that is, Steph. With my last bit of energy, I could theoretically go and get a granola bar, but I'm sending the money to you. And it's like, God, if the $1 is meaningful to you, like if it's a significant portion of your daily food budget, for God's sakes, don't send it to me. I mean, that's not what I want, Well, the starving kid in India is going to die because someone wanted to send $1 to freedom. Like, don't do, so when people say, like, when I made fun of the last guy for the $1 and said, what if that's his last $1? It's like, dude, he's in college and he plays hockey. Do you know how expensive hockey is to play? Like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year. I think he's not starving. If somebody sends me, $1 billion Zimbabwe note that they could otherwise use to get medicine for their child, I will mail it back to them and say, with more money, saying, please don't send it to me. So, but I just do the ad thing really briefly because people get confused, right? I want to be in the business of delivering philosophy to the listeners. As soon as I take ads, I am now in the business of delivering listeners to the advertisers. That is not a good thing. I've also talked about, in the show where we talk about you can't invade an anarchic country because it's so dispersed and spread out and there's no central tax base to take over. Because I do stuff that's controversial. When I do stuff that's controversial, people get annoyed. And what do they do to people like Rush Limbaugh? They attack as advertisers, right? And so I don't want to have, 5 advertisers that people can go after and mount campaigns against if they get upset. I like being dispersed and spread out and people not knowing where the money is coming from. I don't want to interrupt the show with advertisements. I just don't. We talk about really intense, deep stuff in this show. And now it's like, I'm sorry that you're sobbing about what happened to you when you were 7. But we really need to hear about some pill that's going to turn your toilet water into a geyser of potable drinking, a potable drinking fountain. You can't. I mean, you can't interrupt that kind of stuff with advertisements. I like doing the Peter Schiff show, but the commercial interruptions are a real challenge. Like 20-30% of the time is commercials. And that's a lot worse, for me than, donating $10 a month. So, like anyone who listens to a reasonable amount of material, like let's say that they listen to, let's just say, 10 hours. 10 hours a month. That's not much, right? 10 hours a month. And let's say that 30% of that time would otherwise be commercials, which is kind of the ratio in radio. So, I'm saving them 3 hours a month. And they're getting 3 hours of great content rather than 3 hours of ads. Or 2 hours or whatever. If someone donates for like $10 a month, that's $3.33 an hour for their time where they get to listen to philosophy rather than ads. I think that's great. So, for a wide variety of reasons, it just doesn't, and also, let's say I advertise off YouTube. Well, recently we just got shut down after I came back from a speech in Amsterdam. Okay, so if I'm going to rely on ads, then that's it for my revenue if one place decides to pull me. Even if the advertisers are fine, if one place decides to pull me, whether it's YouTube or whatever, then that's it. Whereas, of course, YouTube can pull me and the income can still continue with people who are... So it's a wide variety of things, but it is annoying. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. People forget that I've been doing this for like 7 or 8 years. And before that, I was an entrepreneur for 15 years. So, basically I've got 20 to 23 years of entrepreneurial experience. I've thought of ads, it's just how do you, it's like some musician who's really great is like, did you ever think of playing for other people? I mean, did you ever think that maybe you could like record a video and put it on YouTube? I think that happened to some Bieber fellow. And it's just like, wow, I guess you're right. But everybody wants to be smart, not because they're smart, but because other people just are too dumb to tie their shoes together. Anyway, sorry for the rant, but I wanted to sort of clear that up for people. It's not a model that I feel comfortable with. I always want to be pointed, like a salmon in a swift current. I want to be pointed right at the listeners. And that means doing stuff that's meaningful for the listeners and that works and is powerful for the listeners. That's why we do so much call-in stuff. I mean, I enjoy it too. And that's why I want the show to be funded by listeners. It is just it keeps it so much cleaner, the whole relationship.
And also, I want to bring up too, as far as with the advertisements, is, and maybe this is kind of what I've gotten from it as well, as far as the show listening, is that too, is if you're going to get advertisers in, then if you went to advertisers, your main thing is getting viewers. Is the amount of views, that kind of stuff. That's where you're going to be chasing. That's where you would be chasing to get more money to like spread the show. But, a lot of the stuff I know that you're doing, whether it be more like newsworthy stuff, I think you guys just did something on Benghazi or something like that. That doesn't mean that you're converting these people that are listening. If you get 1 million views to watch Zimmerman, doesn't mean they're converting over and like starting to, get rid of the illusions. They might just be interested in watch the video. But
and the videos of the call-in shows. I mean, one of the reasons we invested so much money in the studio was so that I could easily do video while doing the call-in shows. I simply cannot sit for 3 or 4 hours. It's bad for me, and I don't think as well. So I needed a place where I could sort of walk around. And so one of the reasons we're investing in all of that is to try and up the views of the call-in shows on YouTube. If we just look at the YouTube statistics, the call-in shows seem to be relatively unimportant. They'll get 20,000, maybe 30,000 if it's a big one. But in terms of podcast downloads, they are by far the biggest shows that people listen to. That basically it's a giant call-in show delivery mechanism where they wade through all the other crap just to get. So we get hundreds of thousands of downloads of the call-in shows with like 20,000 maybe or 25,000 views on YouTube. And that makes sense, right? It's a 3 or 4 hour show. People are going to sit there and watch a screen for that long and download it and listen to it as they roll around. So again, if we're doing advertisements, then we've got to jam a whole bunch of ads into the podcasts. And those ads, what happens if the company goes out of business? Or what happens if the company says, I don't like your show anymore. You talked about my wife as an estrogen-based parasite. And therefore, we want to pull all of our ads out of your show. They're MP3s. They're embedded in. What are we going to do? Are we going to go back and slice and dice them all up? That will take, I can't even imagine how long that would take. And then do we put other ads in? Anyway, it's just crazy. It doesn't work.
I guess
so sorry, people, suck it up and pay. Or live with a bad conscience, but don't take it out on me that stuff costs money,
I guess maybe I wasn't making my point clear, but what I was kind of trying to say is that for, as far as FDR, from what you've said, this is what I'm gathering, is that, it's to change the world of, stop people from hitting in delusion and that kind of stuff. And I would think that a better marker of that would be donations, people freely donating for shows that are offered for free than people watching and getting advertisement, just looking at a bunch of views. I know for me, is like, once I was like, listened to you, I actually heard you on the Peter Schiff show first. And I started listening, I actually listened to Real-Time Relationships as like the first thing.
And that's before we did the call-in show, right? You called in with your then fiance. By the way, you did get married, right? So
yes.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. How's it going with that, just before we move on?
It's good.
Good, okay.
Really good.
Okay, so sorry, you heard me on the Peter Schiff show, and go on.
Yeah, no, but I was saying, so once I listened to that book, and it was like, it started making sense to me, and then I, started buying into, or I shouldn't even say buying in, but, it kind of unlocked a new way of thinking for me, is to see kind of the world for the way it really was. And then that's what, once I saw that, then I kind of saw like, well, for me, it was following my values would be donating. I think I started out with, with like $10 or $20 donation subscription or something like that. and it went up from there. But it's kind of like the more it changed my life, the more I wanted to help others. I guess that's kind of more, and that's the other thing I want to talk about too. Is why I donate is to help others. It's not for me. I mean, once I've listened to some or something like that, but I'm not going to stop donating because if there's shows I'm not going to listen to or something like that, I'm not donating per show. I don't even see it like that. I see it as like, I guess it's for me, it's like having empathy for myself. If someone would have got to my parents or something like that when they were younger, if they had something like this, or, luckily it got to me before I had kids. And, to end that cycle for anyone else. And I mean, that's really, to me, what's so important. But I think that's a better marker of the success is the donations that you're getting. So I think that, that's going to, relying on donations is going to keep you driving towards that which is best for the world, I guess. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, no, I think it makes sense. To some degree, I think you're saying that the donations scale more in terms of how Mike and I can view them and how we view our contribution than an ad. An ad is going to be the same if the person is blown away by the show and it changes their life, then they've watched one ad. And if they're like, well, it was an okay show, but I was just listening to it in the background while I was doing my hair or whatever, so we don't know the difference. With donations, people can say, damn, Steph, that was a fantastic show. Here's $3, rather than $2 or $1 or something. Just kidding. But no, they can donate it. They could say this show, like we sometimes get donations where people say this show just blew me away. And then if they give a substantial donation, then it's like, okay, well that show, at least for this person, it's more measurable in terms of its impact with money than it is in terms of its impact with just a click. I mean, we don't know. It's like binary as opposed to scalar, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing too is about that dollar thing. I was thinking about that. I was going to try a little experiment with similar to that. I was going to write it down on a receipt at a restaurant. Really, really great service, best ever. $1 tip. But I just couldn't seem to.
No.
Do that. I thought
don't make the waiter suffer because someone is that way inclined for this show. And I used to refund those. Like for me, anything I'd get that was a couple of bucks, I would just refund them because I was just like I don't want it. I just by the by, and people say, well, but Steph, you have 160,000 subscribers, 175,000. If every one of them donated $1, it's like, yes, and if all the rain in the world fell on me, I would be crushed. But it doesn't. Anyway. So it does kind of spread out, but, I used to refund them, but people then would get really upset and say, oh, my $3, I guess wasn't good enough for him. And they'd type all over Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, forget it. It's too much work to refund. I'll just every now and then point it out that, because if somebody sends me $1 along with you changed my life, I mean, it's so not in the other person's shoes yet that I don't actually believe I've changed their life yet. Changed my life would be, a year ago I would have just sent $1 and thought that was great. Now I understand. I empathize with what it's like to be on the receiving end of you changed my life, here's $1. And so I'm going to just send you a nice note. I would way much better get a nice note than $1. Because that, people say, oh, man, I don't have much money, and I'm always super polite and thank you, and that's wonderful to hear. And obviously take care of yourself before feeding the internet beast of Free Domain Radio. But it speaks that they still don't get what the show is about if they don't understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of getting $1 while saying, here's my really, really expensive hobby and you changed my life. It means that I haven't actually changed their life. That's kind of why I want to still refund it.
Yeah. They're kind of telling you with that the show hasn't had the effect that they're saying. And if you don't say something back to that, almost, it's like, it's kind of almost like you're letting it stay. Not that I guess you're obligated to tell them anything.
And I mean, what's wrong with, the funny thing is, I have this whole book about being honest about your thoughts and feelings in the moment. When you get a donation like that, what's wrong with being honest about my thoughts and feelings in the moment?
Yeah.
People can just get mad at me. It's like, well, Steph, you shouldn't feel that way. Hey, I stubbed my toe. You can say to my toe it should feel differently, but this is how it feels. I'm going to be honest about it. But it's good to prick people's conscience once in a while. And it's also great to take the giant fire hose of the band hammer, like to the YouTube channel, into the message board from time to time, and to Facebook. You know, when you say stuff that really pricks people's bad conscience, if they believe in economics, but they say, well, we don't need the government because the problem of the free rider can be solved in a free society, and then they themselves are a free rider who refuses to pay for something, then, if they get angry, it's the banhammer is thirsty for the blood of trolls this morning. She shall drink deep of the blood of the goblin trolls. And it's great. I love just cleaning those people out. And, the last thing I want is for a total dickhead to say to people how much he loves Free Domain Radio. Like, I think that is, really, really fantastic. Like, you want the fattest people in the world to say they hate your diet book, not that they love your diet book. And so, getting trolls angry and storming out is like, mwah. I mean, it smells like victory. It smells like delectable troll farts of exit strategy. So, I sort of want to point that out. And that is this weird thing in business where you have to keep all your customers. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh man, the idea that the customer's always right and you keep all your customers is fine for retail when people are cycling through, but it's not for any kind of movement that aspires to any kind of virtue. Anyway, sorry, I'm sort of rambling, but I hope that makes sense.
But it's like Pareto's law that 20% of your customers would take up 80% of your time.
Yeah, and if people are, trolley or difficult or negative or volatile or something like that, I want them to really not like this show, and that way they keep other people away from the show, because anyone who says, this guy's a real asshole. I'm not speaking about the dollar guy, I'm just speaking in general. This guy's a total asshole, and he really hates that show. I think I should go check out the show. If assholes hate it, it's got to have something to it. But if he's a complete asshole and he's like, oh, I'm a huge fan of Free Domain Radio, then people are like, oh, no, I don't really, it's not like a movie where you take the $10 from the asshole as much as from the nice guy. That's not, that's not what you want at all. What you want is to, if you know the movie critic is going to hate the movie, you don't let him in, but you don't know he's a movie critic, and you don't know if he's going to hate the movie. But in this kind of thing, keeping people away from the show is, 51-49. 51% we want to bring great people to the show. 49% we want to drive douchebags away from the show. That is essential. And if I was advertising, I wouldn't care. No. Right? If I was advertising, be like, hey, trolls come, click, no problem, it gets me more money. But with this situation where the quality of the community, the quality of the listenership and so on is really important to especially to donators like yourself, driving people away from the show is almost as important a job as bringing them in.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you're doing that and having it free and then taking donations, although even for myself, when I first started donating, it does put you in a weird situation that you're not used to. It's like, oh, here's this it's not like if you had like a subscription and just said, oh, you had to pay this much. It kind of takes the onus off yourself. Like, oh, I don't, okay, I just pay this and we're good. We're equal, right? We're even. Or if it was advertisements, oh, I don't have to pay anything. I just have to watch these ads or whatever. But when you say, here's this, and it's not like a good, sometimes they have the donation car washes, so you go there and you're like, well, how much should I donate? You kind of have an idea about what they're expecting or something like that. And
it's not their living, right? It's just it's a charity. So it's not like the kids go hungry if you don't give them $10 for the car wash or whatever. Right?
Well, and I think that might be some of the thing with Free Domain Radio, because it is such a valuable thing. And I don't know, for me in my life, it was that you kind of never feel, even for me, I never feel quite right about what I'm doing. It's like a thing that I have to weigh I'm constantly weighing. It does feel like some pressure in a sense, but to me, I think it's good because it really makes you, accountable to yourself and your values. But it does.
Yeah. I want people to donate because they get it.
Yeah.
Because they really get what voluntarism is all about. Here's the thing, right? So virtuous people, if they know they can shoplift, they won't shoplift. Right? They won't. Like, if you knew for sure, I could go and grab this iPad or this candy bar, walk out of the store and never get caught. A virtuous person will not even be tempted. Not even be tempted. You know, like if I find a cell phone, dial the number here, you know, give it back to you. I don't want a reward or whatever just because I know if I lost my cell phone, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, you just do the right thing. And this is sort of a test of people's virtue, which is you can shoplift the shows. There's no security guard. The candy is all out there on the counter. You can go and take it and you can wander off if you want. But there's a little sign there that says, you know, 50 cents a show or 50 cents, you know, for a candy bar or whatever. But you can grab them and you can walk out if you want. You can come back later, right? So a virtuous person is like, okay, well, so if that's the deal, right, if this show takes donations, then obviously I will donate. 50 cents a show is very low. Some of the shows are like 3 or 4 hours or whatever. And so this is sort of the question that people ask themselves is that if there was a store that had a suggested donation for whatever you consume, would you just go in and grab it and run away and sort of, I got some stuff for free? Well, then you're not a good person yet, right? But if you come and you partake and you listen and they keep reminding you in every show, hey, you know, you got to donate, you should really donate, you should really donate. Will you actually do it? Well, it's a store with you know, vague prices and no security guards and everything's out there on the counter and you leave a tip if you want. If you don't, well, you got to look into your own ethics around that situation. And that's why, but I can't tell people to do it. And the moment I charge them for it, then people just, I've anonymously seeded them. Good luck finding me. You know, forget that, right? That's just an invitation for people to try and mess with your business model. But I know when people donate, if they're long-term listeners and if they're getting real value out of the show, I know, like you, that they get it, right? They're going into a store. The store owner needs to live. He's offering his wares for free. Here's, not for free, but here's a suggested donation. You know, eat what you want, pay on the way out. And if there's a restaurant that says, eat what you want and pay whatever you think it's worth on the way out, here's what we suggest, and you don't pay, and you keep coming back, and you keep eating, and you go out and you don't pay, and you keep coming. I mean, at some point, people got to say, well, I'm listening to a show about ethics, but I'm consuming without reciprocity, and I'm going against the request of the support of the show. And I don't, you know, all I can do is keep making the case. And maybe people have never encountered someone who makes a passionate case without aggression. And maybe they've not come across someone who, like, I don't feel that uncomfortable asking for donations. I mean, God, I was doing sales for 15 years off and on before that, asking for like $1 million for a software package, 50 cents a show. It's nothing. But it's not really up to my level of comfort, right? The important thing is the more money I get, the better quality shows I can produce, the more travel I can do, the more people I can hire to do research and the quicker we can finish a documentary and the other things that we're working on. And it's not about my level of comfort. It's about, well, every time I do a show, then, 100 people or 1,000 people or whoever knows what the number is will stop hitting their children. So the fact that it may or may not be uncomfortable to me, it's completely irrelevant. I mean, it's completely irrelevant. I mean, if you're running to save someone and you stub your toe a tiny little bit, you stop and say, "Ooh, my toe! I really, it's like, no, I got to go. My kid is hanging from a bush on a cliff edge, and I got to go and save that person." And you don't really think about your level of comfort, or whether you stubbed your toe or whether you stumbled a little bit. I mean, you just because the urgency is that high, and maybe people have not met someone who recognizes the true urgency of the mission. And, I'm sorry if it makes people uncomfortable, but we really have a whole lot of children to save from being yelled at and hit. And I don't frankly give a fuck if it makes people uncomfortable. That's the mission.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of the thing is that if they don't see it, they see it more as entertainment and not as like a world-changing type thing.
Then those people should, take a fly and get the hell out of here bus. It's like, please do not stick around the show if it's entertainment value only. I would rather cut the show's numbers in half or 3/4 and have the people who are really dedicated. Because, like 4% of people donate to the show, or, depends, it's how you measure it or whatever. But it's definitely low to mid single digits. So, we could cut the show by like 90% of listeners and still have the same income. And I think that, if I could sort of snap my fingers and do that, I'd be sorely tempted. Of course, the goal is that some of the other people are just starting out. They're just listening. Maybe they've never heard a donation request, although it's in almost every show. It's in almost every outro, and it's definitely in the low bar for every video. And So yeah, people are just cruising along, and maybe they just haven't kind of got round to it, or they haven't really tried to implement the values, the sort of the RTR stuff, the honesty stuff, the integrity stuff. But yeah, the people who are just like, hey, that guy makes some funny jokes. It's like, please go see a comedian who's not invested in virtue, because I don't want people orbiting at that distance. It's bad for the whole solar system.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to imagine like only like 4%, but it would seem hard for me to believe. I guess it's kind of dumbfounding to me to listening to these call-in shows and imagining the stuff that people are getting to talk about and kind of trying to change in their lives is like it's so. It's just so powerful as far as for me listening that you would think that people would understand it more. I know you've read some stuff from people that have wrote in and how it's changed their life and stuff and things with kids. And I know, like, for me too, I've wrote into, Michael and talked about stuff that's changed in my life for my whole family, really. It's like taking this stuff back and, now my brother and my sister, when they have kids, they're not going to hit. They're not, you know what I mean? And taking that stuff to change it throughout families, and even talking to people at my work, I, talk with them about, not hitting their kids, not doing that kind of stuff, and trying to spread the message that way. And it's amazing. I mean, because this stuff is only, I know you say it's as far as multi-generational, but you think of stuff like Bitcoin and things like that. But, as smart as kids are, and it really is about how you approach them and talk to them. And they're not far from changing. The kids they've already changed. You know what I mean? It's just us not changing them the wrong way, I guess, is the thing. So I just can't believe that people don't get behind this a little bit more.
Well, I mean, to translate from theory to action is a domino effect, right? So it's like, okay, fine, I'll donate $20 a month, or, what is that, 80 cents a day or something like that. Then what happens is your brain says, shit, really? What? We're not just listening? We're going to actually start to change our behavior based on philosophy? And again, I would rather people donate much less money and spend more time doing, what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate your support as well. But, if people were saying, I can only afford $5 a month, but I have committed to telling 10 people a month about peaceful parenting, fantastic, then I can live on the $5 a month, and I'm much happier then for that. But I don't think people really get what it's like to actually just start living your values in whatever way, shape, or form. And it's hard for me to sort of explain to people. You're just happier, right? But I think you'd mentioned that you felt a sort of before and after when you began to sort of support the show and really put stuff into practice. It makes a big difference that you can't really explain to people before they do it.
I guess I was kind of talking about the transitions I went through since I started donating, and that, like I was saying about it being something that's kind of up to your conscience, and that there was times where I felt like I wanted to quit donating, and I was saying it had nothing to do with the show or anything that was going on, not that the show wasn't good or anything like that, but I don't know, it's just like it was just like a weird relationship for me to myself, like donating to I don't know if it was like doing good or following my values, but
well, we all want to jump out of philosophy from time to time. I mean, we all do. I mean, there's nobody who quits smoking who says, that was wonderful. I'm never going to have an urge for a cigarette again, right? I mean, we're all raised to be addicts to illusion, through government schools, through religion, through family structures that are often dysfunctional. We're all raised to be addicts to illusion. Philosophy is saying, screw the illusions, I'm going for truth, reason and evidence. But it's not like that just changes. I mean, there's times when I've wanted to just say, screw it, I'm going back to I've changed my name, go back to the software world. That's, because there's steady income and less controversy and so on. But yeah, we all want to get off. Of course we do. Absolutely. I mean, this is true of all change until, like, people who were quitting, wanted to end slavery. I mean, some of them were like, ooh, I don't know, it's a moral crusade, but, it's kind of dangerous, kind of upsetting. People were getting mad at me. Now, we're not tempted by slavery at all, at least the overt kind. But yeah, during that time of transition, I mean, there's no like, I took the red pill and now I'm never tempted by the blue pill, and I never want to go back. Of course, I mean, that's natural. You want to quit donating. I want to quit doing the show. It happens from time to time, and you just say, okay, well, this is just my addiction trying to lure me back, and, you listen to it, and you negotiate with it, and you move on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's true, as far as those times are pretty much long gone. And it does feel good knowing I think that's the positive end of of donating for me, is to knowing that there's people, and hopefully there are people out there that can't afford it, that, my donations enable them to be able to listen. And that's the person I imagine I'm helping, that there's someone that's, listen, they're not hitting their kids, or someone that's, changing their mind, or maybe there's someone like seeing you, just even the fact of this, there might be someone, that's in their teens right now that's hearing you and saying, wow, this guy can make it doing philosophy as a podcast. I want to do that. And he's going to dedicate his life to doing that. And
and he might, that person, that man or woman might leave me completely in the dust, might be fantastic. And way better at what I do. You never know who you're going to reach, who's going to have either money or talent or resources, who is going to just be the next great big thing and can take it far further than maybe I could for whatever reason. And that's what people help as well. Or the people who say, well, I used to listen to that show, it hugely helped me, and now I've moved on, and therefore I'm not going to donate anymore. Or, and again, when I say that, I always mean time and or money or whatever it is, right? And it's sort of well, I graduated from that school, so I'm never going to, but they have this whole alumni thing where you give money to the school even though you've graduated, because you want other people to have the great educational experience that you had, even though you're no longer attending the school. People kind of get that, it's well, I was baptized, so I'm never going to contribute another penny towards baptisms. It's no, that's, according to the philosophy or the theocracy, that's how you get into heaven and so on. So, yeah, even people who say they've moved on, it's okay, well, it had a huge positive impact in your life. And so you can help that spread to other people with whom it can have the same positive impact, but, keep sharing or keep donating or whatever it is going to be. But people are well, I've moved on. And it's philosophy is not the kind of thing that you just A, you don't just move on from it, and B, even if you found some way to do it, the more people share, the more they support the show, the further philosophy can reach. And, we've got some significant competition. We can't dunk babies' heads in waters. We can't snip the ends of penises off for kids. We can't get tithes. We can't, I'm not going to threaten people with hell. All I'm going to do is remind them that the buffet is free, but donations are necessary for the food. And so don't steal, basically.
Yeah. Well.
Now listen, Kirk, we can move on because I know you had another. We can sort of switch if you want, because you had another question. Should we just hang up and call back about that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, fantastic.
Right.
Thanks.
And thanks for talking to me.
Oh, thanks for bringing it up. It's obviously a big topic and something that, we as a community, I make my request, we as a community can talk about if there's better ways to do it or better ways to spend time, energy, and resources to spread philosophy. I'm certainly happy to hear it, but I appreciate you bringing up this topic. And, of course, I hugely appreciate the support that you've shown the show. And I'm glad that you got married and you're enjoying it.
And again, that was from Stefan Molyneux, Don't Kill Your Conscience. And the reason I really wanted to play this is I've seen a lot of discussion about people asking for donations or trying to sell something. And I kind of look at it as kind of basically the way, he said, you come in, you can eat all you want and pay on your way out what you believe, you owe, and you constantly leave without giving any thing in return. And I understand for a lot of people, they don't have maybe the money to donate. Well, another way you show the support is you spread the word and you share. And, I look at UCY.TV and having this platform that I and the other hosts here do not have to pay and don't get paid to be on. We get the opportunity. Jules has put all of her time and effort in making this network and giving us all the hosts here a platform to speak on. And, you know, it shouldn't be a big deal for Jules or any of the other hosts to say, hey, donate to ucy.tv. Go to ucy.tv. There's a donate button right there. You know, a lot of us, you know, might prep, buy prepping gear, look into maybe, you know, the possibility of some type of nuclear fallout or, you know, that whole Fukushima stuff going on, and they might want to look at type of prep gear for that. Check out go to ucy.tv, click the little Amazon button, and, you know, find the gear through the ucy.tv, link. And that helps support the network. And, you know, I don't think it should be a big deal for, you know, the network to ask for donations or ask you to buy through their links to help support them. Because, you know, just being with this network from basically the beginning, I've watched how much effort and work has went into building this network and what Jules has done. And, you know, she's doing this that way people can spread the word and we can try to make a better future. But again, she has a family she has to raise. She has her own obligations. And for her to put all this time and effort, I don't think that, it's a big deal. I don't think, you know, the upkeep on the servers and machinery to run this network, you know, if you're listening to this network all the time, and this network has given you, informative information, has affected your life in, you know, a positive way, I don't think it'd be a big deal. And, most of you know I've kind of had my website, stagnant right now, and that's because I'm slowly building this infrastructure and trying to get things in place to actually do what I want to do with my website. And I'm doing that directly out of my pocket. And, you know, I've mentioned, you know, I have a donate link, and that's usually all I do. But, you know, this stuff is coming out of pocket, and, to be able to build that platform to actually bring, high quality stuff, I plan on changing my broadcast up completely, which I have, people that I'm lining up to be guests on the broadcast and really get in depth into, a lot of the philosophy and, political and the news side of everything. And when I launch that, you know, when I actually launch everything I'm planning on doing with my broadcast, you know, that takes effort, that takes money. I'm having to upgrade all my equipment. You know, things start getting outdated. You know, definitely computers and the machinery anymore, to keep stuff like that updated to be current with, the rest of society, you know, at least here in America. Of course, around the world it's different. And, we try to bring you high quality stuff. I haven't had guests on for a while, except for, you know, I've had some of the other hosts here, Vince, which I noticed he, kinda promoted that my broadcast was coming out tonight. So thank you, Vince, for that. Had some of the other hosts here, call in, and some of the listeners call in, and I definitely want to make my broadcast more interactive with the audience and bring a lot more guests on. And, you know, again, you know, donate to UCY. If any of the hosts, you know, have their own website and you want to help support them too, you know, that stuff is needed. And when you have the funding, you can properly, do what you need. And I understand that, not everybody has the funds to donate, and again, feed yourself. Don't, we're not starving over here. Definitely make sure you have the food on your plate. But if you want to see things grow, when you want to see, things discussed that you're not going to see on mainstream media, you need to support those, networks and those groups of people that are doing that for you. And I'm so thankful to Jules for what she's done. And, she's put long hours into this, full days and, time away from her family. So, much appreciation to her for that. And I just hope to see a lot of support go to UCY, because I know that it's not easy and it's not cheap to do what she's doing and what UCY is offering. And, no longer do I have to record my broadcasts and put them in some type of archive. This whole infrastructure she's came up with, and, again, shout out to Jules. I am going to get into some news here. And, I have one here out of benswan.com. And this one is exclusive, candidate for governor arrested, or libertarian candidate for, governor arrested for gathering signatures. And this is out of Ben Swan. I'm going to play this clip real quick and then get into this article. Okay, they're sticking him.
I am 10 feet, 15 feet. I'll give you space.
They're handcuffing him and sticking him in the back of a SUV, a police SUV.
Fucked up. That's fucked up, guys.
I'll take these cuffs off to come down. You gonna calm down? Calm down. I'm doing your work. You worked 5 minutes ago. Please take that cuff off my wrist. You're breaking my wrist.
They got his wrist twisted, almost putting his palm back onto his back.
I'll give you space if you gave us space.
Get in the car and sit down. Get in the car and sit down. Why do I have to get in the car and sit down?
What are you arresting him for? What are you arresting him for?
Back up.
I'm asking, what are you arresting him for?
You're going to be in the car too. What are you doing?
I'm asking, what are you arresting him for? What is your cause?
I simply told him you can't advertise in the park. You need a permit for it.
There's no free speech in public spaces. Is this a no free speech zone?
He was gathering signatures, libertarian candidate for governor, and they try to tell him that that's advertising and that he needs a permit to advertise. Completely
a power trip right there.
Untrue. And that cop was also, puffing up his chest and trying to threaten the guy that had the camera. And the guy with the camera kept backing up. Definitely a threatening gesture. Now here out of the article, it says here, Lake Calhoun, Minnesota, 4 months. BenSwan.com has reported on the uphill battle libertarian candidates. Play again. Says the uphill battles libertarian candidates face when trying to obtain ballot access, including Ohio gubernatorial candidate Charlie Earl being kicked off the ballot 3 times in this election cycle, or Florida gubernatorial candidate Adrian Willey being arrested for driving without a license only a week after he was invited to take part in the state's one gubernatorial debate. But it is Minnesota gubernatorial candidate Chris Holbrook who may go down as facing the most outlandish attack on his attempt to get onto the ballot. Holbrook was arrested Thursday afternoon at Lake Calhoun while gathering signatures to gain ballot access. According to the Minnesota Libertarian Party, candidates of minor political parties in Minnesota need to gather 2,000 signatures during a 2-week period that ends June 3rd to be listed on the ballot for statewide races. That was what Holbrook was attempting to do when he was approached by 5 local park police officers. We were sitting in the parking lot of the park, and the 5 volunteers who were with me were starting to sort our literature. A park police officer came over to us and asked us what we were doing. I told them that we were going to gather petition signatures, and he said, you can't do that here. We know that we are legally allowed, says Holbrook. Because Holbrook and the LP volunteers were aware of the law, they explained their right to be at the park. Within 10 minutes, another 4 officers were on the scene. Holbrook and those with him began recording the confrontation with police. The officers asked for my ID, which I refused because I had committed no crime. He ordered that we stop filming him with our cell phone cameras, which he said was illegal. Then he grabbed me, twisted my arm, and smashed me against his vehicle. Holbrook says that his shoulder was wrenched and injured, and the handcuffs actually cut through the skin and Holbrook's arm, causing it to begin bleeding. Ultimately, the arresting officer charged Holbrook for selling and marketing in a public space without a permit. That, of course, was an inaccurate charge. Non-commercial activity is permitted, and petition gathering falls under that heading. Petition is not considered advertising and is a protected activity under Minnesota and Minneapolis law. PB 215, use of parks, parkways, and waters for financial gain. Petitioning is not commercial activity. And that's in parentheses. PB 236, administrative offense only, not an arrestable offense. Minneapolis Code of Ordinance, Title 13, Chapter 332.20. What's more, by Thursday evening, the charge against Holbrook had already been dropped as he received an apologetic call from the park police chief. In addition, the Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board apologized. Park statement via Chris Steller. This afternoon, the Minneapolis Park Police issued a citation to Christopher Holbrook, Libertarian candidate for governor, for violation of Park Board Ordinance PB 215, use of parks, parkways, and waters for financial gain. The incident and citation were reviewed this evening by Park Police Chief Jason Ohoto, who determined that the officer earned and misapplied the ordinance. Park Police Chief Ohoto has dismissed the citation. Chief Ohoto directly contacted Mr. Holbrook this evening and apologized on behalf of the Minneapolis Park Police Department for the error in issuing the citation. The Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Park Police Department understands and upholds First Amendment freedom of speech in the parks. As for Holbrook, he says that rather than receiving a call from the chief, he wants to know why the officer who assaulted him wasn't making the call. He hasn't been given an answer asked why he feels he was targeted. Holbrook's answer is fairly simple. When you see 5 guys wearing yellow t-shirts that say question authority, the authorities respond to that. So, it's one of those things that it's definitely, completely outlandish, and it's a thug reaction to seeing something like that, and that's, something that libertarians definitely are in complete support of, is questioning authority. You should never blindly follow anybody that claims authority. And that's the thing, they claim authority, we don't grant them the authority, unless you do grant them the authority, but that's up to you. But one thing that was in that is the cop trying to tell them to stop recording with their cell phones, that it was illegal. Well, here's another article here out of Ben Swan. First Circuit Court rules recording of police protected by First Amendment. The First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that the filming of police officers during arrest or otherwise is a constitutional right protected by the First Amendment. The decision came after Carla Garrick, a New Hampshire native and resident of the Free State Project, was arrested in 2010 after attempting to record on her cell phone a traffic stop involving her friend and the Weir Police Department, according to RT. Garrick's cell phone malfunctioned, though, and failed to record the incident, but the officers still arrested her on charges of obstruction, disobeying a police officer, and what the courts are calling unlawful interception of oral communications. Citizens' rights to record officers in public has been hotly debated over the past few years, with many police officers and departments saying citizens do not have the right to film officers while carrying out their duties. The Department of Justice in 2013, according to Politico, argued not only do citizens have the right to film officers in public as protected by the First Amendment, but citizens are also protected by the Fourth and 14th Amendment from having any such recording seized by officers without a warrant. Many states have held hearings on similar cases involving the recording of officers. In 2012, the state of Illinois ruled in favor of the ACLU of Illinois to record police officers while they are publicly performing official duties. In some states, particularly in Massachusetts, the law reads citizens can record officers, but only if the citizen tells the officer beforehand they are being recorded. If the citizen were to privately record the officer, this could be considered a crime. In the case of Garrick, the court ruled it is clearly established in this circuit that police officers cannot consent consistently with the Constitution, prosecute citizens for violating wiretapping laws. Oh, there it goes again. My page keeps jumping. Wiretapping laws when they peacefully record a police officer performing his or her official duties in a public area. The First Circuit Court covers the states of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Maine, and this decision may nullify any laws in those states which make recording officers a crime or otherwise. So, things like that, we keep seeing that, well, the courts keep upholding, but the officers will many times claim that you don't have a right. So it's definitely important to know what your laws are too, that whether you have to tell them that you're recording or you can just record because it's in a public space. Or if you're able to record no matter what, if it's on your private property, which I usually recommend closed circuit recording devices, and a little sticker on your screen door or window letting them know that you're being recorded on these premises. So to protect your butt and make sure they're not abridging your rights. Okay. Give me a second here. As things slowly load. Might have to restart my browser here. Okay. Sorry, I had to restart my browser there. Everything started loading extremely slow. Okay. I'm going to play a clip here. This one. To change the world, disregard Admiral McRaven. And this is from Adam Kokesh.
There's a video going around YouTube right now. University of Texas at Austin, 2014, commencement address, Admiral William H. McRaven. And it's got over 1 million views, tons of shares, lots of likes. People are just really excited about this video. And it's a pretty good commencement speech, really. Gotta hand it to the guy. Very smooth, eloquent speaker. Clearly, his military training has at least given him that much. And he is able to deliver a very complete set of life-guiding principles. Very, simple, straightforward, boilerplate kind of stuff, all wrapped in the wonderful storytelling of a former or, this guy who's gone through all the Naval SEAL training and is, a Navy officer and, wants to, promote militarism and all of the wonderful machismo that goes along with that. And there's a theme to his speech that is really noble, and it's changing the world. As he said, what starts here changes the world. I have to admit, I kind of like it. And he says there are 8,000 students graduating from UT, and he goes on and makes this, silly mathematical comparison, where he extrapolates and says, if you just touch 10 people every day and those 10 people touch 10 people, well then in 100 years, the graduating class here will have reached 800 million people. And it's, like I said, it's a great pep talk. And he's got all these great machismo stories about, well, when I was in the Navy SEALs, there was this day when, we had to swim in mud up to our necks in the freezing cold, and it was until dawn, and we started singing, and therefore, singing is good, and keep your head up, and it's like, look at the kind of platitude stuff, and it's not bad advice, really, in and of itself, by any stretch of the imagination. Lots of practical nuggets, lots of fun stories, but there are some, how should I say this? For a man in uniform, glaring contradictions in his speech and in his message here. He says, respect everyone. If you respect everyone, it makes it kind of hard to be in a military based on, to put it mildly, disrespecting people who get in the way of American interest, which we know is a code word for the interests of the sponsors of the American government and the military-industrial complex, and all of the other corrupt forces behind our political class on Capitol Hill. So, right away, I see this great oh yes, respect everyone, unless the politicians tell us to kill them. Yeah, then it's a good idea, then we should go and do that. And he said specifically, step up when the times are toughest. And, great lesson, platitude, wonderful, I can't disagree, put it on a motivational poster. But again, there's a serious contradiction here, or at least a significant blind spot in this guy's awareness. I mean, I'd like to think he's not dumb. He's a good speaker. It seems like he wrote the speech himself. Sounds pretty smart. Graduated from UT, commissioned into the Navy, passed the SEAL training, which is no small feat, both physically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. I mean, all of those things are tested. They really do weed out anybody who can't hack it in the SEALs, and it's an extremely high standard. But the reason I have to think that he's either dumb, blind, or a coward, or some combination of these, is because I can tell you from my personal experience in the Marines, the toughest times that every soldier faces are the moments when he looks back over his shoulder, looks back at the politicians or the generals behind him, and thinks, maybe these guys are full of crap, and I shouldn't be risking my life to make these rich pricks richer. Yeah, maybe that's a bad idea. And I don't think that Admiral McRaven, again, is so dumb or blind or not paying attention to the news that he's unaware of this reality, that he's unaware of the fact that that war is a racket, that our military is not really doing anything to keep this country safer. It's just serving the special interests of government. That, I mean, at best, it's incredibly corrupt, and for the longest time, at very least, going back to when General Eisenhower warned us in his farewell address of the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex has been largely the primary determinant of our foreign policy. I mean, along with the Israel lobby and so many other corrupt banking forces. Yeah. So, I don't think that that's the case with Admiral McRaven here. But this is the point. When you look over your shoulder as a soldier and you're about to face, you have an enemy who wants to kill you. And in the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, it's because they're defending their country. And you have to wonder, geez, well, if that's the case, why am I here? And you look back over your shoulder, and you look at the commanders, you look at the politicians, and that is the point at which nearly every single soldier fails to step up and face the truth. Fails to, as McRaven said, step up when the times are toughest. And instead, cowardly plunges into battle in order to escape the more difficult fight. Yeah, that's right. Going into combat does not make you brave. It might mean you have a death wish. It might mean that you acknowledge the risks of combat and you think it's worth it, which means you're just stupid. It could be that you've been completely lied to and misled. But either way, we know that serving honorably means finding a better way to help people than killing strangers for politicians. So, it is cowardly to simply say, you know what, I'm just going to do what society tells me to do. Maybe I'll get a nice blowjob and, I'll get a medal on my chest when I get home and I'll get a pension and, oh yeah, the VA will take care of me if I get injured. Yeah, trust the government. Yeah, that's pretty cowardly to not face up to the contradiction that you know is in that, in going to war, in fighting to kill and die as a poor man to make rich men richer. Really. It's cowardly. And he also said, face down the bullies. It was a very specific, that was the line in McRaven's speech. Every government is by definition a bully, and every soldier is a paid killer for politicians. You want to face down the bully? Holy crap. If the troops defended freedom, they'd be attacking the government. They would be fighting for freedom here at home. They would be attacking the bully that is government. And what is a bully? Someone who intimidates people to get them to change their behavior, to bend to their will, to cause them pain and distress. Everything government does is based on bullying and threatening consequences. If you don't go along, if you don't obey the authorities, at best you get locked in a cage. At worst, if you resist that kidnapping, you get shot. So, soldiers and Admiral McRaven himself might have been duped into thinking that he's fighting all these bullies around the world, but deep down, Admiral, you know better. So his theme was making the world a better place. And he spent most of the speech saying, see how tough we are in the SEALs? See how hard we work? And what's really sad is that the most important thing he could be doing to make the world a better place would be to challenge what is at best overblown and, I would argue, entirely unnecessary, militarism. Yeah. That we think the military is keeping us safer, that we think we need this ridiculous buildup of arms in order to defend this country from some existential threat of terror. Be afraid, be very afraid. And I'm at a loss for words hearing an admiral saying, yes, it's time to change the world and make it a better place, and so follow these platitudes. Don't think too hard, don't challenge authority, don't face up to the real fights, but in these very narrow ways, because when he says, step up when the times are toughest, he means in an external sense, when everybody agrees that they're the toughest, when there's an obvious physical challenge, but when it's a mental challenge, when it's a psychological challenge, when it's a real challenge of courage, no, just go along with the herd. Face down the bullies. Well, face down the little bullies that government identifies, that it points out through its politicians. Yeah, let's face down those bullies, but not the real big bullies. Let the big bullies run all over us all day long. Yeah, let the government run roughshod over America. Not a big deal. And then this idea of making the world a better place. Can you imagine how much better off we would be? All of us, if the intense effort and the insane amount of resources that goes towards protecting the government racket and exploiting poor men to die in rich men's wars was instead directed to productive efforts. I mean, holy crap, the SEALs, amazing men, really, incredible intelligence, talent, a certain kind of courage, just physical ability, unbelievable, really, the best of the best. In their way, absolutely. I'm not trying to debate that. But holy crap, how misguided are they? Can you just imagine if all the SEAL candidates busting their butts to survive freezing cold mud and insane training exercises instead maybe put that effort towards inventing the next big technology? Ending hunger? Just a suggestion. I mean, maybe people would get along more. Maybe there wouldn't be as much conflict in the world. Creating a better education system? Making cheaper cars? Starting businesses? Being entrepreneurs? Figuring out better ways for humanity to get along? That would change the world. So I was really excited.
And, you know, it was one of those things that we always seem to talk about, you know, how governments, you know, unnecessary evil. But a lot of times I also see the same people, basically causing fighting. That is what government uses to legitimize themselves. They go, hey, look at these people. They'll sit there and, you know, they'll kill each other. Everybody's going to just sit here and, you know, I got mad at that person, so I'll go shoot him. You know, anarchy is chaos. And a lot of that is just anger. A lot of times it's, how should I say, misinterpretations of, attention. It's one of those things that people seem to just react without thinking. And it'll be the same people that will say, well, you know, government is unnecessary evil and it doesn't do anything good, but then in the same, stroke they will, you know, do something that will allow government to go, look, without us, this would just be going on rampant because now we have to send the cops in to defuse this and arrest people. And without government, you know, and we don't say, well, without government, there won't be any crime. we say, hey, without government, we'll have better options. No one will have a monopoly on force. You won't have this monopoly created where they can go up. People that drink or smoke marijuana or do drugs should just be arrested, and it's illegal even though they're not hurting anyone. We'll make it illegal and then arrest them. And we've seen prohibition on alcohol that didn't work, and alcohol has been proven to cause quite a bit of harm in society. And that was the whole reason behind, we'll make it illegal. And they find out, well, it doesn't get better when you make it illegal. It actually gets worse. And for some reason, people can't figure that out with the war on drugs. And you still have people going, well, we need it because that stuff's bad. Well, alcohol is bad too, but we understand that prohibition doesn't work. It's one of those things that you can't get stuck in the same cycle if you're going to look for change or become the change you want to see. You have to start acting. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be perfect. You're going to, trip, fall, you're going to screw up, no one is perfect. You will be hypocritical at times. And that's okay. If you're trying. And, that's one thing, I do. It's not, I do good because I'm good. I do good because I take an effort in doing good. I take an effort in making sure things that I do are adherent to the principles I believe in. And, that having that character, but that doesn't mean I'm perfect. I screw up. I make mistakes. And, it's one of those things. You own up to the mistake. That way you can recognize the mistake you make. That way you can fix the mistakes you make. And, when I look at a lot of alternative media and, and then you go to Facebook or Twitter and or YouTube especially, and you start looking at the comments that are negative. And a lot of times it's straw man arguments. And a lot of times it seems to be, well, he talks about this, but he did this in this one video or said this in that one video. So you're going to call out the one time that he wasn't perfect. We still have to recognize that even, alternative media personalities or radio hosts, and everybody's going to make a mistake. And you make mistakes in your life. We got to stop having this unrealistic look that, well, because they're a host, they got to be perfect. They can't make mistakes. Because then you're pitting them to a level that they'll never be able to reach. Because they are human. And I think in the long run too, what that does to you mentally, when you start putting these people at that level, what happens to you mentally is you start trying to put yourself at a higher than realistic level. In the next 10 years, I need to be a millionaire. Well, if you have to first gauge, is that a realistic view? Do you have a plan? Oh, I don't have a plan to make $1 million in the next 10 years. Well, then make your goal. Let's make a plan to make money and see if we can come up with a plan that's successful. Okay, now you made a successful plan that because you've written out that plan, you've executed that plan. Now you can look at your revenues and go, well, okay, within the next 10 years at this progress, even if I have hiccups along the way, I can look at a realistic view of 15 years. I'll be able to make, have in reserve that $1 million. don't make the unrealistic views for yourself that you're just going to come out of the gate one day and be successful. That no matter what you do, that right out of the gate you're going to start off and just start making it. It takes work no matter what you do. It takes work, it takes time, it takes years, it takes planning. And to set unrealistic goals for yourself, I think is what causes people to lose that lack of enthusiasm, that lack of creativity, that they lose that drive to keep moving on. But if you're setting those realistic views for yourself and you achieve those goals and you make it a step system where you continually, once you reach that goal, you make some more goals that are in a realistic viewpoint. Something that you know that if you go out there and bust your butt, you can accomplish these. It allows you to better plan, it allows you to better succeed. So it's one of those things that you really have to, whether it's looking at yourself or looking at anybody maybe in the public arena. Definitely, you know, a lot of these startup alternative medias, radio networks that are starting up, you know, a lot of these people started off on YouTube. They don't have any professional experience doing this. Unlike, you know, Ben Swan, he's been in the media for a while. But there's other people that they just went on YouTube and started off, and people liked it, and they kept growing it. And now, because they are becoming successful in what they do, that they're somehow not human, that they shouldn't make mistakes. Again, you're setting goals for them that they'll never be able to reach. And a lot of times at the beginning, the goal you set for that public person that just started doing videos on YouTube, going, I like their message, I think they will get a lot of views, they'll reach a lot of people, they'll get a lot of subscribers. That was a realistic goal you set for those people, and you watch them accomplish that. Now you're going, well, they're not perfect, they're not doing this, they're asking for more money. Well, it takes money to grow a lot of these operations, and, you know, again, that's why I think people need to support these networks that they listen to. And you know, again, it's as simple as going like to ucy.tv and hitting the Amazon link and buying prep gear from Amazon through that, and that helps support UCY. Again, I don't think that's asking for too much. And I know a lot of people buy a lot of stuff online anymore. Definitely a lot of times the cheapest way to go. So, you know, check that out, you know. I put affiliates, on my website. I don't get paid for them just to be there. Therefore, I'm not afraid of funding being pulled away. I definitely am not funded by them. But that gives you a great resource. My Patriot Supply, if you're looking for, non-GMO seeds or things like the Life Straw. It can help me out, and if I grow and my followers grow, and doing things as simple as that allows you to help fund it without me being obligated to some advertiser, because I'm not funded by the advertiser. I'm funded by people that go, hey, I like that non-GMO seeds, and I like Anti-Tyranny news, so I'm going to buy my seeds too. It's a lot different than a lot of these, large corporations and their websites where even though some of them might have, Google ads or something, at the same time they have private ads that these big, other corporations pay to be on. They are the drivers of the funding. Look at, MSNBC and all these, big corporate news that they're losing viewers at a pretty staggering rate. You start looking at what some of these shows are bringing in for viewership and you're like, wow, these news corporations aren't doing good. Well, how are they even operating with that type of viewership? Well, it's because they got a lot of major corporate advertisers. Same advertisers that a lot of activists seem to be fighting against. Therefore, that might also be why the news doesn't cover a lot of topics. Because they're funded by those same companies. But eventually, that low viewership is going to go, so low that even those corporations are going to be like, well, why am I paying for this? That last show got 10,000 viewers. I think there was one on CNN. I can't remember. It might have been another network that only, this one show only got 25,000 viewers nationwide. A national show, 25,000. And, when you start seeing numbers get that low, I believe you're going to see a decline in corporate funding to them. And they're going to probably start seeking out, a lot of the alternative media. And I think it'd be interesting to see what, alternative media companies sell out to. Let's say if there's a alternative media outlet that's for crops and farming and livestock, and they get into that, they might at the beginning go, hey, we should do this organically and, get those non-GMO seeds. Those are pretty good. Then all of a sudden you start seeing maybe Roundup commercials. Or hear Roundup commercials. Then they go, yeah, I've had a weed problem this year and I went down and got me some of that Roundup and it took care of the problem. I don't think it's gonna harm my crop. You start seeing that direction go. There's one ag, show that's on here locally on one of the talk radio stations, and there's constant advertising going on this. They'll talk about it, but it's constantly with someone that's with a corporation. And they always are going, well, that's why, our company, we have this product, it's called this blah, 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 and that usually take care of that type of problem. And yeah, I've seen farms that had that problem, and that problem's been bad for the last couple of years. By the way, dude, I tell you, our company has something that does take care of it. I think it's the best thing for you. And that company, you should do it. And that's the only guest you ever hear on this, these ag shows. I'm like, this is just nuts. You don't ever hear anything about any type of organic, definitely no homesteading type talk. It's all about factory farming. Everything on that show is based on factory farming, and almost all the hosts all the guests seem to be with some type of company. for promoting a company. So it's just one of those things that a lot of that is affecting their viewership, because I think a lot of people are waking up. It at least seems that a lot of people are truly waking up to it. And when that happens, viewership falls, and then those corporations are going to seek out the sellouts. The people that are willing to throw their message in the trash can for a buck. Hey, I'd be welcome to advertisers to help me grow what I want to do. But in absolutely no way do I want to be reliant on their funding. I'd rather be reliant on the funding of the people that support me. Won't ever, throw my message out the window for any sponsors. I don't throw my ideology or morals out the window for any of the listeners either. I hope people that listen to me listen because they just want to hear my thoughts. Whether they agree or disagree, it's not, well, let's change his mind. You might, if you throw ideas out there, if you come up with solutions, I'm always willing to listen to other people's opinions. And I don't hate anybody for their opinion. I might hate their opinion, but that doesn't mean I dislike the person. I've met a lot of people that I completely think that their personal ideology and their personal morals are, I don't know how to even put it, are kind of scrambled, that there's no real basis to their ideology or morals, that they don't have a grounding in what they believe in. And I could even believe it to be unhealthy, but that doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. I'm always trying to help people along. Definitely when you see someone struggling, if they're trying to figure things out and they're kind of reaching for solutions or ideas or a belief, always trying to help them out. I think one of the healthiest things is the ideology of freedom and liberty and, truth. And when you have that fundamental, ideology and that grounding in a belief, and you can really accomplish. And you look at a lot of the socialists, the people that truly believe in this communist socialist view, they are grounded in their belief and how they believe it to be. I think history has proven them wrong. Might be a good idea on paper, but when it's all played out, human nature proves it to not be successful. But they're grounded in it. They truly have a belief. Therefore, they're dedicated in what they do. You look at the socialist type movement right now. They're not huge. I think we have a we have a misconception that the socialist movement is so extremely huge. I don't think so. I think they're just dedicated. They're grounded in their belief. They're dedicated to what they believe in, and they're willing to work at it. That's why there's not enough public outrage over what's going on with government. Because the ones that are working extremely hard are the ones that are truly grounded in their belief. And, people are like, well, why aren't the libertarians? A lot of libertarians are really grounded in their belief. Why aren't they successful? And I've had this asked a lot of times. And it's a real simple, answer. And what it is you look at libertarian ideology and you look at socialist ideology. Libertarian ideology doesn't allow for the concept of that the true libertarian ideology doesn't allow for the concept of being able to have 51% of a populace vote the other 49% of the populace into any type of authority system. You can't, morally, you can't go in and go, well, I have authority over you because 51% of the populace says I do. So I can make the laws and restrict your ability. They don't believe it. Socialists believe that, oh yeah, the majority does have the right to rule over the minority. Because we have to do what society needs us to do for the greater good of the community. I think volunteerist interaction with each other, I think that's actually the best way to achieve that type of community, because people need help, and I think one thing that socialism and all that does is actually drive people away from each other. You don't see neighbors really hanging out with neighbors all the time anymore. You don't see the block parties or the barbecues with multiple neighbors anymore. You don't see that type of interaction with each other. Definitely with the electronics nowadays too, has even made it worse. You can have a room full of people, and almost all of them will be looking down at a mobile device, ignoring each other. We've gotten to a point where I think it shows through this whole society change. The more we get closer to a socialist, everything has to be done for the community or the collective. When everything has to be done for the collective, and then you have the technology on top of it, it gets to a point where everybody is paranoid about the next person. You're looking to see what that person's doing. They're looking to see what you're doing, and you're both paranoid that each other are looking at each other. Because you might do something wrong that goes against the collective. Because what's human nature? Human nature is selfish. I think you have to be able to exploit that selfishness for the greater good of society. And that's allowing people to be entrepreneurs, to be able to have that free exercise of their individual ambitions, as long as it does not hurt the next person and does not abridge their rights and does not abridge their property. Their person, it doesn't threaten them. I think that is the best way, but we can't have that with government. What does government do? It helps create those monopolies and that, well, we don't like what one company does, so we're going to restrict all companies. That's kind of that elementary type, mentality that they treat you and me and the rest of society like elementary school students. one of you did something bad, so now you all don't get recess. Is that not what it seems like? Whenever one person does something bad, everybody is affected. That's childish type activity, and I think, again, being something that you see them do in the public school system, in elementary school and stuff. One person does something wrong, everybody gets punished. It's that way of mentally getting them prepared for that collective. And you live in fear of stepping outside the line, because then everybody's affected and they'll bully or, gang up on you. Because you made it harder for them. Even if you do nothing wrong, nothing morally wrong, nothing that abridges or hurts anyone, but it's just because someone dislikes it or finds it offensive. So now you shouldn't be allowed to do it. And you do it anyways. And then no one's there to defend you because it's the collective getting punished. They're not looking at, well, we're getting punished for something that's stupid. That's stupid. We should get punished, and, he should be allowed to do that. It's not that. You get taught at that early age that, no, see, you don't want to do something that makes everybody mad. And it's it's manipulation of young kids' minds, and I think that feeds into how society operates. Because I think more people would stand up, but they know if they feel if they stand up, will there be enough people there to back me up? Because if I do this, there could be repercussions that affect everybody. Well, when it starts negatively affecting other people, a lot of times they quickly back off. Oh, I no longer support you. Not because I disagree with what you're doing or what you're saying, but because it's being looked at in a negative light. And it's being portrayed as something extremely negative. I just can't be associated with that. That'll hurt me. So I can't back you up on this. I think you probably see a lot of that going on in the past year. I think you can really look at a lot of instances where that has gone on in the public eye for a long time, really. But it's really being, I think, amped up, and again, it's been beat into us as young kids. Okay, let's see what the clock's running. We're getting close here to the end. If you go on YouTube, you can find that that speech by Admiral William H. McRaven. Just if you type in his name, just type in Admiral McRaven, and you'll find the speech there. And you can listen to that, and I think we really just need to start trying to live our ideology that we believe in, and understanding that we're not perfect, that we got to continually work on ourselves. That's what's going to lead to a greater future. That's going to lead to more enlightenment and more progression and evolution in the way we interact with each other. Stay tuned here on UCY.TV. Coming up next, Boiler Room Radio with Jim Funke. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.